Before World War II, France ruled Indochina. Indochina is just another name for the area of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. They're just Asian countries. The French used Indochina as colonies to produce crops for a profit and exploited the workers, and it was not very fun living under the French rule, which is why the Vietnamese opposed the French and wanted to declare their own independence and to basically rule their own country. Vietnamese nationalists, those who disliked the French rule and wanted Vietnam to have their own country, thought a communist revolution was the only way to gain freedom from the French. And because of that idea, the Indochina Communist Party was created in 1930 and staged a number of revolutions and revolts under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh. And Ho Chi Minh is pictured right over here. During World War II, Japan took control of Vietnam from the French. So now the Vietnamese has to deal with Japan. During this time, Ho Chi Minh created the Viet Minh. The Viet Minh was an organization whose goals was to win Vietnam's independence over any foreign rule. So they didn't want the French, they didn't want the Japanese, they wanted to rule themselves. The Viet Minh would stage these attacks and revolts and protests against the Japanese during this time. When the Allies defeated Japan in August of 1945, the Japanese left Vietnam, and Vietnam's goal of being independent was becoming real. In September of 1945, Ho Chi Minh declared Vietnam its own independent state. However, France had no intention of losing their former colony and losing any type of money or profit from these colonies. So, the French troops moved back into Vietnam by the end of 1945. In 1950, the United States entered the Vietnam struggle. President Truman sent nearly $15 million in economic aid to France. The United States wanted to stop the spread of communism, and we saw that Ho Chi Minh was gaining popularity, and we needed to stop that. And it's kind of weird because President Truman also sent aid to Ho Chi Minh during World War II to combat the Japanese, to try to help Ho Chi Minh fight off the Japanese. So President Truman kind of flip-flopped his alliances here. But Truman was really, really scared about the spread of communism, so he wanted to stop Ho Chi Minh as soon as he could. In 1953, President Eisenhower became president, and he wanted to continue this containment policy on communism. He didn't want it to spread. And in 1954, Eisenhower created this domino theory idea. In domino theory, which has the roots in the containment policy, if Vietnam were to fall to communism, the theory is that other Southeast Asian countries would soon follow, toppling over like dominoes, meaning that if one country falls to communism, it's going to spread. So we have to try to stop it as soon as we can.